Alright, this is the third video that I'm making before Landmark shuts down on the spooky maze race that I made for the Halloween Island that never actually got put on Halloween Island, but that's another story. Spooky Maze Race was the only build I ever really finished. It was my coolest, most expansive, complicated build, and I wanted to show it off before it's gone forever. Made a Let's Play that was just a quick run through, made a little walkthrough showing off all the features of the maze, and then finally this video should be a behind the scenes tour of how I actually did all this and how this all works. So to do that, first thing we have to do is to get behind the scenes, we have to get behind the game. So suddenly we see all the different props, we see the linking areas, we see all this stuff. So I'll come back to the game table in a second, but the very first thing I want to do is I want to show you what I did to make this video easier, which is I took the top off. There's normally a ceiling so that you can't cheat, but to make the behind the scenes video easier, apparently I missed a spot in the corner here. Oh no, it's just the wall. I took the ceiling. Oh no, it's a one thick piece of ceiling that I missed. But I just went through and deleted the ceiling so that we could see everything. And this is actually how I made the maze. Like the very last thing I did when I was making the maze was put the ceiling on, because navigating this thing when you're trying to build it is not really what you want to have to deal with every single time. So that is what the maze looks like from above. But before we get into the mechanics of the maze itself, I want to show off some of the features that I'm using on the whole site, which is really just the maze. But so these are the site-wide settings, advanced build settings. So I've disabled I did not disable the grappling hook because I wanted people to be able to peer over the walls. Because I had the ceiling on, all they could really do is grapple up to the top, and you probably saw me do that if you watched the Let's Play or the walkthrough videos, where you can kind of grapple to the top, look through the grate, where see how there's this, like, I wanted there to be some visibility into the rest of the maze without actually being able to cheat and walk over the walls, and I thought the best way to do that was kind of put these bars here where you get some visibility but not as much as you would really want, and not enough that you could actually get through it. So that's why I left the grappling hook enabled, so that you could easily look at that. Disabled voxel destruction. Obviously, don't want people drilling a hole through the wall to get through the maze. That is literally not in the spirit of the game. Did not disable boot abilities, because boot abilities tend to be things like jumping and running and flying, and generally make you go faster. Can't really use them to cheat when there's a ceiling that makes it impossible to go over walls, so why not have a little speed when you're in a timed race? Seems like more fun that way. Enable free camera and enable flying camera, that is not something I had on when this was in play mode. I did that just for this video. But I did want to show you guys something really cool, which is, see how the moon is out and it's like nighttime and dark? It's like always dark, kind of always stays the same time. That is a build site setting. You can choose to have it be a particular time. So I could set it to be the same time as it is in the game, which goes to a regular day-night cycle. Let's move this over here. Get a little better view of the world. And there's the sun. Hello, Mr. Sun. You can actually see other people's builds off in the distance. I did this on what's called the Pioneer landscape, which means a perfectly flat island where they start out new players, but you can also choose to have a build there if you want. I wanted a flat piece of land for my maze, and I was going to move it to Halloween Island when it was done. Turns out I should have started it there, because I wasn't able to copy and paste it because it had a game table in it, and you can't copy and paste game tables. So rather than destroy everything I'd done, I decided to just not put it on Halloween Island, which was really disappointing. But as it turns out, when they did their video showing off people's builds, they did not go anywhere near the site I had claimed, so they wouldn't have seen it anyway. So it's probably fine. But I don't want this to be super bright daylight because it's a spooky maze, which is why I put it at 2 a.m. all the time. Oh, this other thing that's really fun, custom speed. Check this out. You can make it be day and night and day at this like crazy pace. There's the sun. Wow, look at that. I mean, obviously you could slow it down to like, you know, something a little less extreme. Where, you know, it's passing about an hour every second instead of like a day every couple of seconds. But anyway, I like to just keep it at 2 a.m. Sets the mood. And the way lighting works in Landmark, you can't just make a room dark by enclosing it completely. The time of day impacts you even underground, which is one of the many issues lighting in Landmark had. They worked on the lighting for a long time, and they never really got it quite right. It never really got these sort of Minecraft style, you know, light level stuff going on. Anyway, so that was the build site setting stuff that was really cool. So the next piece of Landmark technology that was really crucial to making this happen was the game table. The game table is something that was originally created for PvP matches. And they kind of shoehorned PvE in at the last minute, which is why I was able to make what is not at all a PvP game out of this. So when you put this on a build site, it lets you use the game functionality that you saw in the other videos where you have a timer, or you can have a timer, you don't have to. You have a score, it displays on the screen. And it used to be, originally, they would teleport you back to the start when the game was over, which is one of the things I loved about it, because that meant it would sort of kick people out of the maze if they failed. They took that functionality out because some people didn't like it. I liked it, but I guess I did not mention that often enough for them to not change the functionality on me in the middle of my build. Another one of the many problems Landmark had. Anyway, Spooky Maze Race, name of game, no PvP, no observers, no free-for-all, that would be bizarre. 2 teams, one of which is the pretend maze team. I had to do that because if I didn't, I couldn't display, well, I could display a score on screen, but the problem is the score wouldn't mean anything. If you don't have an enemy team, even if you don't reach the required score to win, because there's no one to be up against, you always won even if you got a single point when time ran out. And I thought that was not the right message to send to the player. Like, if you're lost in the maze and you have 1 point because you found 1 orb but you never found the end and you don't know what you're doing, send them the message, you beat the maze, didn't really seem appropriate. So I made a second team called Maze, and started them off with 3 points by default. That's not in this interface, that's somewhere else. But in order to win, you had to reach all 4 points, which was the maximum team point limit. So when you got 4 points, it ended the game. 600 seconds, that's 10 minutes. Prop settings, that's to place down props like this team spawner. That's where the blue team, which is the player, spawns. Score nodes, that's what teleport to this object. Whoa. That's a really cool loading screen. They did this loading screen contest where they had people take screenshots of their builds and put them in loading screens. So that thing you just saw was actually a player build, which is really impressive. Anyway, the scoring nodes are in here. So see this +1 right here? This is final score. That is a scoring node. And it's worth 1 point. You get that for opening both chests. And when you open both chests, that is the end of the game and you win. The reason why I didn't make it just one chest, which is this main victory chest, is because if you get here before you're done collecting orbs, I don't want you to be kicked out and not be allowed to go back in and look for the rest of the orbs. So if you go in and collect your treasure, you can still go back out and get the rest of your orbs and come back for the bonus chest over here, which you can only open if you have collected all 3 orbs. So that is how that works. So teleporter back to start. All right. So that is what the game table does. It gives you these score nodes that allow you to add scores, gives you the spawners, gives you the timer, gives you the scoreboard messages on the screen. A lot of nice functionality from the game table, not as much as I was hoping for, but still pretty good. So you probably noticed these big blue boxes. Those are called linking areas. And the reason they're called linking areas is because you can create links. So Landmark had something called a linking and triggering system, and that is kind of how everything here works. The linking and triggering system allowed you to link 2 events together and trigger actions off of either an event caused by the player or another event that was part of your build. So for example, when a luminary enters this area, and that's the one I use, when a luminary is what they call the players in Landmark. When a luminary enters this area, activate everything on this node. So if I go in here, it puts this text on the screen. And this text is coming from this story node. The story node is just a bunch of text, how long you want it, do you want it on the screen or in chat or in a chat bubble. There's some other stuff on here like mood and stance and emote. That's if you want the text to, instead of being displayed on the screen, being spoken by an NPC. And you can associate moods with that. Like they can get angry or sad or happy, or they can change their stance. Like you, instead of having the story node have text, you could have it just make them lie down or skip or act like they're drunk. You could also have them emote, like laugh at you or yawn because you're boring the NPC or whatever, and have them change their weapon. Like if you say something mean to an NPC, maybe he'll equip his weapon because he's, getting ready for a fight. You can also have a question. I can show you that later. I do have one of those, a couple of those actually in the maze. But the linking and triggering system is really cool. You can see I have another linking area around this. That is, again, just some text. That's for that text over here called Rules Explain. That's, well, pretty self-explanatory. Now, probably wondering, what's this? This is the linking area around the door. So when the blue light turns on, destroy voxels in this area. When the blue light turns on, heal voxels in this area. You're probably wondering, okay, what? Game start is the name of this logic node. That's a logic node. So this blue light comes on when the game starts. I have something else linking to this node and making that happen. And when this blue light goes on, that means the game is over, and it heals the voxels, meaning it puts the wall back and you can't get through. Like currently, since the game is over because we finished a game and didn't start a new one, it is in a state of being closed. And this blue light is indeed on to show that the game is over. That is a cool functionality of being able to stop people from getting into the maze when the game is not going on, kind of in this little holding pen. And there's some other nodes out here that are pretty neat. So all these little nodes on the ground, these are actually props. They're a particular kind of prop. They're under the special effects section, story tools. So story tools are things that run Landmark behind the scenes. And it's really cool because they put this power in the hands of the player to do things like create game rules and set NPC behavior and set up events so you can have a wall disappear or reappear, or have an NPC turn from friendly to hostile, or have an NPC walk around the room or start dancing or say some text or ask the player a question and do something different depending on how the player responds. So I think I mentioned in my video of the Let's Play and Walkthrough that my maze was random. Well, there's a node in Landmark that let me do that. It's called the random link filter. Put this filter down, say create link, say assign potential action. You can link this to anything at all. Any other node, any whatever. And what happens is when this is set off by something else, so when an incoming link, and I'll show you kind of an example of an incoming link. So an incoming link, let's say I want to trigger a random action off of me walking in this area. So I can say create link and say when a luminary enters this area, trigger a random action. And I think that auto-completed because there was only one available choice, which means I need to change that autocomplete links when there's only one option. Yeah, I want you to be able to see this. So let's try that again. So break that link, recreate it. Luminary enters this area. Still auto-created it. Well, Luminary. Luminary. Landmark is buggy. All right, so I'll just show you what it did. So, okay, when a luminary enters this area, trigger random action. So if I walk in here, it's going to choose from among all the potential actions I've assigned, and it's going to pick one of them each time. So let's get a fun little prop. Let's get something like fireworks emitter. That's pretty cool. And I guess I only have one firework emitter. Don't I have others? Let me get another one real quick. This Landmark is like closed. Doesn't really... That's not the right kind of fireworks. Aha. There we go. Recipe. Ooh. Purple triple fan. Let's do that. Alright. Game is going away. I don't particularly care about spending my lumens. Alright, so we get 2 fireworks going. So, assign potential action. Set off that firework. Assign potential action. Set off that firework. Alright. So now I have this thing. It goes off, triggers a random action, either setting off this firework or this firework anytime I walk in here. Oh, that time it picked that one. And that time it picked that one. Pick that one again. Pick that one. See how this goes. It's random. It'll either pick one or the other. Because it's 2, it's a coin flip. But if I added a third one, can I afford a third one? Oh, that's not what I meant to do. Firework. So, what color do we want? Let's do red twinkle. That sounds like fun. Alright. Now I know the recipe for that, and let's do a third one. So, assign potential action. Come on. Sometimes these emitters, being so tiny, are actually really hard to link to. Okay, I'm using the free camera to get up a little closer. All right. So, let's try it again. Oh, number 1. Number 1 again. And number 3. All right. Each one has an equal chance of being chosen each time I walk into this area. And it's completely random. And that's what the random link filter does. So, that is how that works. So these, as you can see, are also random link filters. So I have 3 randomization bits going on here. One for picking the ending, one for picking the first orb, one for picking the second orb, one for picking the third orb. So there's 6 total orbs in the maze, but only 3 are used each time. So there's orb 1A and 1B, and it'll choose one of the 2, and those are like sort of the easy orbs. 2A and 2B, those are the ones in the dark section, and 3A and 3B are another 2 orbs. So these all trigger off of, so viewing outgoing links right now, which is viewing basically just the 2 potential actions. So potential action number 1 is to activate orb 3B. Potential action number 2, I guess the other way around, whatever, orb 3A. Now I'm going to view incoming links. So what's triggering this? Well, it's when the blue light turns on, trigger random action. Well, what is turning on the blue light? This logic node over here called game start. This is a logic node. All it is basically 2 lights, blue and yellow, that can be either on or off. So they're basically variables in programming terms. So blue is set to false right now because it's off. Yellow is set to false right now because it's off. But in this logic node called game end, blue is set to true. So they did it in terms of lights to make it a little more intuitive for people who haven't done any kind of programming or anything, but honestly, it would have been a lot easier if they had just done it in just straight programming terms, to be completely honest. So this is a very straightforward set of links. When the game starts, and this is the game table, so the game, it has actions, and one of the actions it has is starting a game. When the game starts, turn on the blue light, and when the game ends, turn off the blue light. Very straightforward. So if the game is in progress, the blue light is on. If the game is not in progress, the blue light is off. And the game is currently not in progress, and as you can see, the blue light is off. Something very similar going on. Why is, oh, because I'm only viewing incoming links. Let's be outgoing links. There we go. All links. It only has outgoing links. So it's also got links going to, on the game ends, turn on the blue light. These are hard to see because they're right next to each other. Let me move this. Make it a little more straightforward so you can see which one's going to which. And the interface is in my way. But on the game start, turn off the blue light, meaning this is the game end node. So when the game starts, you turn it off. And when the game ends, you turn it on. So it's the opposite of the game start node. So I needed one node to tell me when the game was going on, and another node to tell me when the game was not going on. You're probably wondering why I can just use one node for both. It's because Landmark is really buggy, and also because I was worried about overloading my poor little game start node. Because Landmark is buggy, I didn't want any one node to be controlling every single thing ever. So I was very limited in what I did here. And I actually have more than one node like this that indicates the game is going on. You can actually see that I have game start and game end nodes in the treasure room. The treasure room is only accessible to players via teleporter, but because we took the top off, we can actually just fly right in. Those are the teleporters you come in by. You saw those in the other videos, assuming you watched them, which hopefully you did, because this will make a lot more sense if you've actually seen the maze in action. But you can see I have replicas, basically, game start and game end, partially because I was worried about overloading the nodes, because, again, Landmark is buggy, and I didn't want to get too crazy with any one particular node. I don't know if there's a point at which these nodes start to break, but I didn't want to find out the hard way. And then also, it's just a convenience factor. There were a lot of things at the beginning that needed to trigger off of the game starting and ending, but there were also a ton of things in this room that needed to trigger off game starting and ending, because this room, as you can see, has the vast majority of my game logic. So these are logic nodes that indicate whether or not the first orb, whether it's orb A or orb B, you can see it's actually linked to multiple. Yeah, see it's linked to both versions of Orb 1 and incoming links. There we go. If Orb 1B is clickable, if Orb 1A is clickable, if Orb 1B has been clicked, and if Orb 1 has been clicked. So you can see this right here, when the game starts, I turn off this light because I want to reset the state of whether or not that orb has been clicked. And this right here, it's really easy to see right now because I have this link going, but that switch is nearly invisible. This is my secret reset switch. If everything goes horribly wrong, this manually resets every single logic note in the game to false, so that if I'm in a bad state, I can get out of it. That happened a bunch during testing. Like I said, Landmark is super buggy, because frankly they just didn't have the developer resources they needed for a game of this size and complexity. I mean, it's a player-built MMO, for goodness sake. It's really pretty astounding that they did what they did with like one developer and some duct tape. So it's pretty good for what they were working with. Anyway, I'm gonna go back to the start. So so that's sort of like how I randomized this and how I kind of controlled a lot of the flow of the logic. I'm going to show you how the orbs worked. So when one of the orbs was chosen at random, let's say we chose 1A, what it would do is the first thing that would happen, these are incoming links. So where is it? Assign potential action, turn on the blue light. So orb 1A is chosen by the random filter. It turns on this blue light. And what happens if we turn on this blue light? Well, let's check out the outgoing links. So these are all the things that happen when this is chosen. So when this is chosen, first it says that, okay. When the blue light turns on, turn on this light. You're wondering what light? It's the orb. The orb is actually a light. If I had not messed with it, it would respond to me just clicking it, turning on and off like a normal, lamp or light would. But I didn't want people turning it on or off all the time, so I broke the default functionality. See, it says click to activate default behavior on this prop. If I activate the default behavior, on, off, just like a normal light would. But I don't want that because this is not a normal light. This is a light that indicates your progress in the maze. So instead of going with the default behavior of making it a toggle for the light, I made it so that when a luminary clicks this object, you perform an if check. Well, what does that mean? There's a node called an if node. And this is the if node right here. It's called if orb 1A is clickable. And I had to do this because I was worried that people could click it through the wall. Because as it turns out, if you can see something in Landmark and you're not that far away from it, see how that's glowing yellow? That means I'm in click range. And I was worried people were going to grapple to the top and click it without actually going through the whole maze to get here. So what I did was I set up a check to make sure that the orb was in a clickable state. And what did I mean by a clickable state? Well, I wanted to make sure you'd actually gone here and gone through this section. This wall, these voxels, much like the voxels back at the front, which we're actually quite close to. You remember this door that disappeared. Well, when this orb is chosen, remember the orb 1A active? When this orb is chosen, when the blue light turns on, destroy voxels in this area. So the first thing that happens, well, not first thing, but one of the many things that happens when this orb is chosen is that this wall goes away. And when it is not chosen, this wall comes back. So right now, no orbs have been chosen. All these walls are solid. You cannot walk through them. When they are not here, they are not here. And you can get to the orb. But I wanted to make sure people had actually gotten to the orb and not just clicked it through the wall. So I put a little check in place. You see that when a luminary enters this area, I don't know if you can read that. When a luminary enters, wow, this interface is really hard to see around, isn't it? When a luminary enters this area, turn on the yellow light. So the yellow light here is the second light on this orb 1A active. So what I did was I made it so that when the yellow light turns on, turn on the blue light. Meaning when somebody has walked into here and turned on this yellow light, it would then turn on this blue light. You're probably wondering why I did this in 2 steps. It's a long story. It has to do with a bug in the logic. Not my logic and the Landmark game itself. Yellow lights are buggy, and I could not do this the way I originally wanted to, but I didn't want to go back and change everything, so I just sort of kludged it together and added this secondary process. Anyway, when both lights turn on the blue light. So if this is active and somebody walked in here, orb 1A becomes clickable. But if that yellow light is not on, meaning that it's turned off because the game is over and no one has walked in there in the most recent game, turn off this blue light. So this light should only be on if somebody has just walked through here in the current match and is eligible to click that orb, meaning they didn't cheat and go through the wall, they actually walked over here. That's what this if check is about. So remember how I said I turned off the default functionality of this orb and instead set it to when you click it, all it does is perform an if check? Well, that if check is, you've probably guessed by now, this if check is using this prop in the if condition, the orb 1A clickable. And if the if succeeds, it turns on the blue light. That blue light over here, remember those logic nodes back in the treasure room? They were our indication that that orb had been clicked. If the if check succeeds, meaning you've clicked the light while the light was clickable, then and only then does the chain of events from clicking an orb actually execute. You're probably wondering what this if condition is. Or you've totally guessed, because it's really obvious, if the blue light is on. That's all it's doing. It's just checking to see, hey, that prop we linked, is the blue light on? If it is, if the if condition succeeds. And there's no else condition. Nothing happens if you click it and that light is not on, you are out of luck. So you can't cheat through the wall. You can't click it when it's not the active orb. You can't click it when you haven't walked through this section. You have to be doing this legitimately or it will not trigger the scoring function. So when I say the scoring function, I mean the series of events that gets triggered when an orb is clicked. So these are the outgoing links. So this is what happens when you click an orb successfully. So first of all, it turns off the light. That light gets turned on when that orb is chosen. When the orb is chosen, it's lit up by one of those other events. But when you click it, it turns off. And like I said, I turned off the toggle functionality. I wanted, when a player clicked an orb that was active, I wanted it to go off when they collected it as a signal to them that they had indeed succeeded in collecting the orb. So that was one of the signals to them that they had succeeded. Also turns off this other blue light, just in case that was orb number 1 instead. This is orb 1B over here. This is the alternate version of the orb. And this all has all the same functionality and all the same logic. All these orbs are done exactly the same way. So I'm just going through the very first one so you can get the idea of how this is set up. The other thing that happens is it doesn't just give you a visual effect, it has to affect the score. So it says activate everything on this node, and the node in question is this thing called orb click, which is a story text node. And the text is, you found one of the orbs, to let the player know, yeah, you did it. You got an orb. I couldn't do anything more sophisticated than that. I wanted to tell them, hey, you got one of the orbs, there's 2 left, and you have 5 minutes remaining. There's no variables that you can shove into a text node. There's no way to say, hey, take the score from this countdown and put it in a text. It's just not a thing. That was just not a capability in Landmark. I don't have access to that as a player. And that was not something the developers saw fit to add to the text nodes. It would have been really cool if they had, and maybe they would have if Landmark hadn't been shut down so incredibly quickly. But that is one of the many things that happens when you click an orb. And then the final and most important thing that happens when you click an orb is this scoreboard goes up. And when this scoreboard goes up, a bunch of things happen. The most obvious thing that happens is this number increments, but it's not the only thing that happens. Actually, apparently it is the only thing that happens. Where's the actual scoring node? Oh, orb score. So, that's how. That's right, I remember now. When this text goes off, meaning when you get the message that you've clicked an orb, you get points. Add points to Team 1. So when everything on this node activates, meaning when this text goes off, add points to Team 1. So, basically, when you've successfully clicked an orb and you didn't cheat and you didn't, didn't click an inactive orb or click it through a wall or something, when you have successfully clicked on an orb, you get a message that you clicked it, the score goes up. This is the sort of visual score. But this over here was just a display for the player and has nothing to do with the actual game node. This node right here, this is part of the actual game table. This is one of those nodes that the game table created. And that is the score that you saw if you watch the video on the screen displayed right here in the upper left all the time. This score was just a visual indicator to the player. It's called orbs clicked, trying to tell them, hey, look, if you want this bonus chest, see, click all 3 orbs to unlock the bonus chest. Hurry. So if they got here, if they reached the end of the maze before finding all 3 orbs, I wanted some really clear messaging as to what they were supposed to do to get this extra chest. Because you can walk in here anytime and click on this chest. Congratulations! If you also want the bonus chest, you'll need to find all 3 orbs in the time limit and make it back here. Good luck. So if they came in here without getting all the orbs, click the chest, I want them to get the message that, hey, you're not done yet. You clicked 0 orbs. There's 3 to go. If you want all the loot, not just this one, but this one too, you got more work to do. So go back the way you came, and only one of these would be active. Only the one you came from would be active at the time. These teleporters are also linkable. See, when the blue light ending 1, yeah. So remember how I said that endings are randomized. So when ending 1 was chosen, this teleporter is active. When ending 2 is chosen, this teleporter is active. I'm assuming you can guess what happens with that teleporter. So that is how the basic logic of the maze worked. Most of the rest of this is pretty intuitive. When a luminary clicks this object, normally you would open the chest, but instead I disabled the default behavior and made it so it would spawn to this guy. And then this guy has some links coming off of him where he activates the mocking skeleton text. I don't know why that's always off. Probably because I didn't disable the default behavior. There we go. Now that'll stay on as it should. Alright, so these maze victims are all just set up in a really basic way. Basic, you know, normal health, normal damage, no value to your score. You can set it so that enemies are worth points, but I didn't want people just farming the skeletons. You have to actually go complete the maze. These are just an obstacle. They react as an enemy. You can make them neutral or friendly. Standard combat tactics spawn automatically, so they're always there when you show up. And no respawning after kill. That is turned off, except for this guy. This guy's special. He doesn't look special until you look inside. See, this says add to game team maze. He is the secret member of the enemy team that is required to make this 2-team setup that I had to use for reasons having to do with functionality I wanted that was only available if you had an enemy team. He is the enemy team. And if he's not alive, the game won't start. Because, as it turns out, if you don't have an enemy, you're not allowed to play. The computer will say, oh, I'm waiting for somebody to join Team 2. And I'm like, it's a skeleton. And the game is like, no, really, I'm waiting forever. You can't play. So I had to make this guy respawn over and over. And that's why he's sort of special. And this is what I use to start off the enemy team with 3 points. So when the blue light turns on, and that's the blue light from the game started node, add points to Team 2. So in order to start the enemy team with 3 points, so that you had to get 4 points in order to get the you win message, I would just add it here. And I made this one node worth 3 points. That way I didn't have to use 3 different nodes for no reason. And then this is the team spawner for red. So if you kill this maze victim, theoretically he would respawn here. I don't know if he actually did. I think he just respawns right here. But if there were a member of the enemy team, that's where they'd respawn. There's some other fun stuff going on here. So this is my secret exit, the grave exit. I put a linking area here. Are you sure that's a really good idea? I guess that's one way out, but it doesn't lead to the treasure. So this is a teleporter. If you really need to get out, that's one way to do it. And I used to have these set up so that they were one way, because you can disable the functionality of a teleporter and make it only a one-way teleporter. But for the purposes of debugging and testing, I actually found that I really needed a way to get back into the maze when it was broken. So I actually kind of turned those on unless there were other people around, which there actually kind of never were, because first of all, hardly anyone plays Landmark. Obviously at this point, pretty much no one plays Landmark. I think there was a giant goodbye party earlier today where all the remaining players got together and, you know, presumably got drunk and built things. But also because the system for finding other people's builds did not work very well. There was supposed to be this whole thing, and yeah, see, this was broken half the time. It led you to a login screen instead of, there was supposed to be this thing where you could queue for games, and stuff like my build site would come up in a list, and you would be able to queue for it. Well, it didn't super work. And no one ever really did this except for the people that I specifically asked to come test it out for me. So that's why I wanted to make these videos, because I did this thing that I was really proud of and no one ever got to see it. So anyway, back to the video. So the maze architect is my little veteran guy. So his settings are a little different because he's a veteran. He has 166% damage multiplier. And he starts with his weapons sheathed because he starts neutral, neither friendly nor hostile to the player. But I also have him when he spawns doing a bunch of stuff. So let's look at the links. These are the outgoing links. So when he spawns, he walks over here. When he reaches this travel point, he walks to this travel point. When he reaches this travel point, he walks to that travel point. Basically, I have him just pacing back and forth, waiting for a player to show up and make his life more interesting. And then when the creature enters combat, activate everything on this node. When a luminary clicks this creature, activate everything on this node called Architect question. And then when the creature is told to walk along the route, the creature walks to this location. So what happens is that if you come in here and you open this door, that actually triggers have the creature walk along the route. So when he spawns, he goes back and forth between these two travel points. But when you open the door, he'll actually come over to you and stand here at this travel point, and he'll look at you, because I made this little focus node. When a creature arrives here, activate this node, meaning have him stare at the node, which is the center of the door, so that he's not just sort of... I had issues with him sort of not facing the player or keeping on walking when the player was trying to talk to them and standing in a real direction. That's what the focus node is for. It gets NPCs to focus on a particular point. So the architect question, you probably saw this in the video. So it has is question chat bubble. Question is, do you like my maze? And then, so you have links from here. One is, those are just incoming links. Outgoing links. When a luminary accepts, meaning they say, yes, I like the maze, you get this thanks node where the guy gives you advice on how to do the maze. But if you instead deny, say, no, I don't like your maze, it sets the creature's faction to enemy. So if you say yes, you get this lovely little text. You say no, he becomes not your friend. And when he becomes not your friend, it activates this text, which is the angry text. You can see he yells, oh yeah, well you'll never leave it alive, in a chat bubble and in chat. The chat bubble never worked because buggy. And he gets angry. He's very mad that you don't like his maze. Rawr. All right, so that's what's going on there. See if there's anything else fun. There's the guy walking back and forth over there. That's just travel nodes. You've seen that before. I think that's actually probably... Oh, I should probably explain how I made all this cool, like, fog and stuff. You might have gotten a hint earlier from the firework emitters, so let's go into this. See, it really kind of... It's easier if you look from the ground up. See the little triangle? It's a mode emitter. And I broke the default functionality so you can't turn it off. So it just stays there forever. And the fog is the same way. If you look closely, you can see these little fog emitters. And I've got a bunch of those scattered all over the dark section. And they're making it foggy. Emitters are pretty cool. They make everything look fun and glowy. This maze is a lot of just really basic, cheap voxels. And by cheap, I mean free textures. So I'll go back to my character real quick. And I want to show you. So for instance, bad guys. Bad guys are just props. You go to the list of creatures, and you can pick Baron, which are the skeletons. You can pick Scalewind, which are these creepy lizardy dudes. Lots of different types of elves, because this is like based on the EverQuest franchise, so apparently they're super into elves there. Novatech, which is the like sci-fi faction, and Evengard, which is a different kind of elf, because again, super into elves. Stoneskin. Not all the Stoneskin are giants, but that one is. That's a magma giant. He's big, and most of the Stoneskin are. Oh, that's another giant. Wait, one of these are. There's a little Stoneskin. Hello. Little for a Stoneskin, I guess. Little in that he's not a giant. Not little compared to, like, other dudes. I guess he's not super tall. He's just like beefy. And then combat hardware. You're probably wondering. Training dummy, which you can like hit and feel good about yourself because you can't fight back. Also, proximity mines, which do exactly what you think they would do. And you can have a lot of fun with these because you can set them to friendly and kill bad guys with them, which is really funny. Most of the cool stuff in here is props. Like, I'm not an artist. There are people who have made amazing art with the voxel technology in this game. I am not one of those people. I'm, sort of a super amateur game designer, but art is not a thing I do. So for me, the voxel part of the game, the part where you make there be walls and stuff, I kind of decided to keep it simple. So I started all this by just getting out a piece of graph paper, drawing out a maze, and when I went to make this, I actually started with all of this just being a giant grid. Like, it was basically a giant stone graph paper, and then I went through and systematically deleted walls. And that is how I made the maze structure. Then I started decorating. I turned the floor to this Halloween black texture, which is a free texture that seemed very appropriate for a maze because it's a very no texture where it's just darkness, which is pretty cool for Halloween, since this was supposed to be... Does this not work? Oh, it's because I'm flying. I'm like, why isn't this working? The jump scare skeleton, which is a lot less scary when you know it's coming, but every once in a while I'll forget he's there and be like, oh, yeah. Yeah, most of this, the trees, the skulls and chains and gargoyles and lanterns and bat colony emitters, it's all just props. Now I did, do some creative color work. You can dye props in this game. So for instance, you can make the candles whatever color you want. By default, they're white. I decided to make them black because I thought that looked cool for Halloween. You could have made them yellow or purple or something, but just dyed the props. Dyeable props are another fun feature of Landmark that wasn't in initially. I say initially. I was in the alpha and the beta, so to me, like, anything that was in at launch is like brand new, basically. I love these bat colony emitters. They look so cool, especially with the spooky tree prop. But yeah, like, one of the things I really loved about this game was how somebody like me with absolutely no artistic skill whatsoever could make something that actually looked pretty cool, because there were all these great tools, and you don't have to, this isn't Minecraft, you don't have to build block by block by block by block by block by block. You just, it's more like Photoshop. Not that I'm any good at Photoshop, but you just select, oh, that's a drill. If you're not in edit mode, you get your tools, but you just select a giant area and then you do whatever you want to it. You can just say, hey, I want to change the texture here to, let's make it green. Okay, well, it's green now. Cool. All right. Never mind, I don't like that. Hit undo, and it's undone. Never mind, I do like that. It's redone. Undo, undone. You just Photoshop the world around you. And you can copy and paste, and you can save templates. So if you're like, hey, I made a cool thing. I want to make 100 more exactly like it. You do this thing where you save it as a template. For instance, complete maze, no decor. this is gonna be fun. I don't think this is practical. It's literally this entire maze. I definitely don't want to place that. And I made you can see what like materials are required and stuff. Full maze grids with lattice, full walled claim, platform, single spawning area. That was for a different build I did. Single maze wall section. So for instance, sometimes after I had deleted a wall, I realized I wanted it back. And that I wanted to do something different than what I had done. So what I would do is I would place it down, and you can go into what's called tweak mode, and you can change what dimensions. So I saved a section of wall, and I can just place it wherever I want. So let's say I want to make this really hard and like not let you go through this incredibly crucial hallway. I just make sure this is lined up properly. Looks like it's good to go. I hit the check mark. Bam. No hallway for you. Looks like you're going the long way around. I'm not even completely sure that that's possible anymore. Probably is. Looks like you can get there from the pumpkin patch. It'll just take you a lot longer. But yeah, it was very useful to have just a little section of wall that I could pop in whenever I needed it and not have to remake the wall from scratch. So templates are amazing, and people who are much better than I am at this game used it for all kinds of stuff, making custom furniture. Most of the furniture you see in people's houses and stuff in this game is all just like, their props. You pick them from a list of, various things, and you can dye them different colors, and probably can't really see the colors very well since it's like, let's make it noon. There. Now you can see what color these are. So just dye the seat green or dye the armchair pink or whatever and decorate your house that way. But some people who are really good at this game, way better than I am, they made their own furniture out of voxels. And I only took one stab at that a long time ago, and I never bothered again. I made this shelf. Behold, my shelf. My shelf is amazing. It's supposed to be a lighted shelf because those white things there, the white texture is a lumicite. It's supposed to be something that is kind of a little glow in the dark. You probably saw it in the, yeah, see, it is glow in the dark. So it's a lit shelf. The lumicite glows in the dark. And you're probably saying to yourself, hey, I'm pretty sure a voxel is like way bigger than your shelf is. And you're right. See, it's like, these are what are called microvoxels. And that is a technique invented by players to warp a voxel to look smaller than a real voxel. I don't completely understand how it works. There's like videos and guides and stuff that tells you how to do it. Basically what you do is you smooth out something until it's really small, and then you extend it to be flat and straight. And this was my one and only attempt at microvoxel building, at which point I gave up forever because it's really time consuming and not something I wanted to spend all my time doing, and I wasn't very good at it anyway. Other people were making just astonishing things with it. So anyway, I think that covers pretty much all the cool landmark technology I used in this. The site-wide settings, the game table, the random link filters, the logic filters, the if nodes, the story text, the question and answer options, all the cool emitters, and then obviously the most important part, of course, is the loot, the treasure. These chests are so cool because when you click that chest, you get real loot. And I don't mean loot that I put in there. It's not like I just like stuck my stuff in a chest and like some guy can come take it all, which is our previous way that we did this before they introduced these. No. The reason why it told me, owners can't loot their own chests when I was running through the walkthrough is because this is real game-generated loot. And you buy these lumens, and you only get a certain number of goes. So it says, count remaining 33. I think it started with 40. So people have looted this chest. People other than me have looted this chest 7 times since the start of me putting it down. And then count remaining 3. So same number. That was a smaller chest. It was 10 loot instances. And if you run out of loot in the chest, it'll send you an email and you can go buy a new one with lumens, which is the currency you can earn in the game or buy in the store. But it was so cool to be able to actually make not just something fun for people to do, but be able to reward them with real game generated loot that I didn't have to put together myself. Obviously I had to pay for it with game resources, but I can earn those. There were quests and stuff where you could earn lumens, and there were lots of other ways to get that stuff. So anyway, Landmark. It was actually a pretty cool game. I'm gonna miss it. That was my maze. And when I leave, you can see the day-night stuff going crazy as I enter and leave the boundary of the maze. It's confused about what time it is. But yeah. It's pretty cool. And that's it. Landmark's over. So thanks for checking out my stuff. Hope somebody enjoyed it, because it's all going to be gone soon. All right. Bye.